You're listening to Keith Sports News. Hey there. Happy Friday. That's right. Welcome to Keith Sports News KSN episode 29. All right. So, not Eric Sports News. This is Keith Sports News. Yes, if you follow Eric Super Magnificent, okay, where you see all the other fun stuff. I'm sure you saw that video. That weird video between the two me's, my clone and myself, Eric and Keith. Yes. That was basically an April Fool's joke, all right? So, just so we're clear on that. And the last video on that channel, wearing the same outfit. Yeah, why not? So, now we can move on. All right. So, seriously, if you enjoy me talking about sports, then I thank you. Thank you very much. So, let's keep talking about sports. So, the last episode, I ran out of storage again, or I was about to run out of storage again, but I pretty much said everything that I wanted to talk about. Okay. And I know the last two episodes were long. Usually most of my episodes are around 30 minutes, but the past two episodes, there were a lot to talk about. Because last weekend was a huge sports weekend. Okay. We had the beginning of the MLB season. The UFL began their season as well, the end of the Miami Open tennis, and of course, March Madness. Should we still call it March Madness since there is no more Cinderella story, as they say? R.I.P. Cinderella. You know, when I heard that, R.I.P. Cinderella, I was like, wait, you're talking about Cinderella, the movie? No. Cinderella, meaning huge upsets where a little team goes deep into the tournament. All right. And I didn't get to talk about any of the March Madness tournament last weekend because I wanted to talk all about the other stuff first. And then I was going to talk about March Madness, but then I ran out of storage. But I decided, why not save it for this episode? Because this weekend is the Final Four. Yes. Alright, this episode most likely won't be as long as the last two. Okay. So, let's talk about March Madness right now, since I wasn't able to talk about it last weekend. Or I guess we can call it April Madness. It's weird, I always wondered, when I was younger, March Madness, I realized that March Madness doesn't end in March. It ends like the first week of April, So, I guess we can no longer call it March Madness because we are not in March anymore. We are in April. The first April episode of KSN. Which means we are in the Final Four. The Final Four is Saturday evening. We got the four best teams in the Final Four. I believe I heard this is the second time in history where all four number one seeds, meaning they are the four best teams, are in the Final Four. The last time that happened was, I believe, in 2008. That's what I heard as well. And in 2008, The Final Four and the championship games were in San Antonio. And this year's is also in San Antonio, the Alamodome. So that is very interesting. So before I give you my predictions of the Final Four, I mentioned R.I.P. Cinderella. So what are my thoughts about that? Well, I heard different people, meaning my favorite sports talk shows that I listen to on a weekly basis, they would say their thoughts, their opinions on, the No More Cinderella story. Does it bother me? No, it does not actually. I want to see the best against the best. With all due respect to the little teams, a couple years ago, St. Peter's beat Kentucky in the first round. That was crazy. And I think St. Peter's won the second round as well. Back in 2018, they had the biggest upset in history. I believe it was a team called UMBC. I forgot what that stands for, but they beat the best team, which was Virginia at the time. And it wasn't even close. It wasn't even a close game. That's why that is the biggest upset in history. It's crazy. You know what else is crazy? The following year in 2019, Virginia, they won March Madness. They won the championship. That's crazy. What a way to make your comeback a year later. Like, that sounds like in a movie or something. Like, you cannot write a better script than that. 1 year, Loyola Chicago made the Final Four. 1 year, Butler, or I think back-to-back years, Butler made the championship, because I watched like a video of like the endings of March Madness, just to see the evolution of it, I guess. So last year and the year before, there were a lot of upsets in March Madness. This year, hardly any. The only upset I can think of is McNeese beating Clemson in the first round. And then McNeese got crushed in the second round. Someone that I followed, he is a YouTuber as well. He talks about sports like me. His name is Johnny Sports Network. We've pretty much known each other online for like the past 10 years, which is crazy. He actually picked Clemson to go to the Final Four. I was surprised. That was basically his, I guess, Cinderella, even though Clemson is in the ACC. The ACC used to be the best conference in basketball, but not anymore. I mean, you still got Duke, the best team, one of the best teams, but now it's mainly the SEC. We have two SEC teams in the Final Four. And they are going up against each other, which means there will be an SEC team in the championship game. When's the last time that happened? Was it Kentucky? Kentucky they won a championship game. I think it was about 10 years ago or so. They might have been the last SEC team to win the championship game. But yeah, history will be made. We have a rematch between Florida and Auburn. I believe, this is what I heard, I think they played each other twice in the regular season, and I think Florida won both times. Meaning one of the games was in Florida, the other game was in Auburn. So here they are once again meeting for the third time in San Antonio, the Alamodome. They say it's hard to beat the same team 3 times in the same season. So before I give you my predictions, I'm going to check my bracket. Yes, which to be honest, I have not been checking out my bracket. I have not been checking out my bracket much, mainly because, well, 2 reasons. Number 1, I forgot. And number 2, every year whenever I do this, whenever I fill out my bracket, it always turns out a disaster. But this year's, it's probably not as bad, mainly because of the No More Cinderella. We having most of the best teams against the best teams. Okay, so I did um, 7 brackets. The first bracket is my main bracket, so I did 6 more random brackets. And then when the Sweet 16 began a week ago, ESPN.com had a second chance bracket. So I filled out 3 brackets. The first one was my main one, and then I did 2 other ones. So I'm going to check them right now. Let me check my 7 random brackets. Okay, so for those of you that filled out your bracket on ESPN.com, if your entry name has a fireball symbol emoji next to your name, that means you're doing well. If there's an ice cube, that means you are not doing well. Yeah, one of my one of my brackets has an ice cube. That's because that bracket picked Clemson to win the championship game. That was random. Percentage 4.7 and 160 points, and that's it. I can no longer get any more points. That bracket or that entry is ranked 24,217,748. Wow. Okay. One of my other brackets had Houston winning it, so Houston's still in it. The other one has Duke. 2 of them have Duke, and 2 of them have Auburn winning, and one of them has Florida. So 3 of the brackets have a fireball emoji next to my entry name. The highest ranking, the best ranking out of my 3 brackets that have the fireball symbol is my 6th bracket. It's the one that I picked Duke to win. Wow, 99% percentage. I'm ranked 264,790. Okay, so the main reason why that bracket's doing so well is because I believe when I filled out this bracket, they had an option where they had multiple options, and one of those options was it'll basically pick the better seeded team in all the matchups. And that is why, and that's what happened basically. Most of the games were like that. The higher seeding would advance, and that is how we got the 4 number 1 seeds, the 4 best teams in the Final Four, and that is why the bracket did so well. How many games did I get incorrect? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's it, only 10. Obviously you got the 8 versus 9, 11. 11 incorrect. The 8 versus 9 seeds are always a coin flip, that could, it could go either way. All right, now how about I'm going to check my second chance brackets, meaning the Sweet 16 and beyond. Okay, 2 of them have a fireball symbol. 2 of them I picked Duke to win, and 1 I had picked Florida to win. The best one, the highest ranked, is the one that I picked Florida, and that is ranked 337,930. Percentage 93.6%. Let me see how many games I got incorrect. And yes, I gotta be honest, I did not check any of the games. Oh, I only got 1 incorrect. The Ole Miss Michigan State game. I actually picked Ole Miss in that game. Michigan State won 73-70. That was the only game I got incorrect. Okay. What about the second best one? The second best one, percentage 90.1%, ranked 519,006. How many games did I get incorrect? One. That is the Houston-Tennessee game. Tennessee got smoked 69-50. All right, so now to the Final Four. I believe, okay, the first one is Auburn versus Florida, the all-SEC matchup. And when you click on preview, ESPN would have a matchup predictor on what they think will be the favorite to win. Auburn is the number one overall seeding, meaning they are the overall best team. And Auburn has a 57.9% chance. Florida, 42.1%. That is a very close game. I know I mentioned some of the brackets that I have Auburn. Some have Florida. Some have Duke. None of them have Houston. What if Houston wins the championship? Wow. I know more people are going to pick Florida, but I'm still feeling for Auburn. I think Auburn's going to get revenge on Florida, and I have Auburn advancing to the championship, but I'm not confident about that, meaning I think the game will be very, very close. The other Final Four, the second matchup, Duke against Houston. And one of my favorite shows, probably the best radio talk show ever, Mad Dog Russo, Mad Dog Unleashed with Christopher Mad Dog Russo. One of his callers said, I think there's going to be a lot more Houston fans in the Alamo Dome, but Mad Dog says, I don't think so. I think there's going to be a lot of Duke fans because, there's a lot of Duke fans in the country because of their history. I can see that. The matchup predictor, Duke, 54%. Houston, 46%. But I am going to go with Duke in this one to go to the championship game. And they are the four best teams, clearly. They are all four number one seeds for a reason. So basically, I have Auburn versus Duke in the championship game. And I'm sticking with Duke winning the championship game. But hey, any of these four teams can win. So part of me wants Duke to win. There's also another show that I listen to every week. You remember the former Duke basketball coach, Coach K? Yeah, I remember when he retired a couple years ago. His last game was in the Final Four. The New Orleans Superdome, so man, he was really close reaching one more national championship game. But yeah, he's one of the best, if not the greatest coach of all time for college basketball. So he has a show called Basketball and Beyond with Coach K on Sirius XM. I'll have to listen what he has to say about the upcoming Final Four. All right. So also earlier today, I listened to. When I say today, I meant yesterday, because remember I record these episodes the night before I release them. So this is a Friday episode, meaning I'm recording this late Thursday night, even though technically it's a Friday right now. I'll tell you what time it is as I speak. It's 12:57 a.m. I like to do these before I go to bed so that I don't have to do it in the morning when I wake up, because I have work and stuff. So I figured, well, why not do it before I go to bed, just to get it over with. So another show that I really like listening to is the Dan Patrick Show. Well-known guy. He is, there's not that many podcasts where you can watch them online. A lot of them is just audio. Well, his show, you can either do online, um, meaning watching it on Peacock, and sometimes they'll usually upload some clips on their YouTube channel, or you can just listen to it on audio. I mainly do audio because a lot of times I'm not at home when I'm listening to these shows, but sometimes I do listen to them at home while I'm on my computer. All right. And he had Jim Nantz on. One of his guests was Jim Nantz, the great Jim Nantz from CBS Sports. He would say, "Hello, friends, Jim Nantz here," you know? So, it turns out that Jim Nantz is no longer calling college basketball games. I forgot he is no longer doing games. 2 years ago was his final year, calling a national championship game for March Madness. And then last year was his first year not doing it. The guy who succeeded him is Ian Eagle, and I do like Ian Eagle. He's a great announcer. Ian Eagle has a son named Noah Eagle, and they look very similar. They look the same, and they sound the same. Isn't that crazy? Father and son alike. Yeah, Noah Eagle, he's really good too. He's really young too, so father and son, just like Joe Buck and his father from the old days, Jack Buck. So yeah. But yeah, I didn't know that Jim Nantz is no longer calling college basketball games for good. I thought it was just for that 1 year, but no, he's no longer doing it. It's Ian Eagle. However, Jim Nantz says he will be at the Masters, the biggest golf tournament of the year, which starts next Thursday. He's been doing. I think when I heard his interview with Dan Patrick, I heard he said that this will be his 40th Masters. Wow. He went to 40 of them every year, because every year the Masters is on CBS, so. And Dan Patrick asked him, if you had to choose one more event to go to, the Super Bowl or the Masters? And he said the Masters, because that's pretty much where it all started, So yeah, yeah, I do like Jim Nantz and Ian Eagle. Noah Eagle, he's on NBC, I believe. Yeah. Anyways, we'll see what happens. I'm sure the Final Four will get big ratings, and that is the good part about no longer having a Cinderella story, is because of the ratings. These games will get huge ratings. So we shall see what happens. Oh, and I heard and I saw that how the championship game is always on a Monday night at a late time? Well, this year it's 30 minutes earlier. So I guess they finally listened to the fans for years criticizing that. Having the championship game on a late Monday night is absolutely ridiculous, especially for people on the East Coast, because for years, I live in Central Time, the game would start a little after 8 p.m., but on the East Coast, it's after 9 p.m. Some people have to go to bed at 9 p.m. In my opinion, the championship game should be, after 7. It should be an hour earlier. Okay? Now I believe it says it'll start at 7:50 my time, meaning it'll start at 8:50 Eastern. That's still pretty late in my opinion, but they're going to try it 30 minutes earlier, I guess. Should be 30 minutes earlier than that, 7:20, And by the way, I don't how whenever a sporting event says it'll start at this time, but it never does. For example, baseball game starts at 3 o'clock. Does it really start at 3 o'clock? No. It starts at like 3:05 or 3:10. Well, I think for this March Madness, it says 7:50 Central. It's probably not going to start until 8 or 8:10, you know? You have to probably got to have a pre-game ceremony, got to do the national anthem and all of that, you know. That's part of the event. It's like when you I don't know if y'all go to the movie theaters anymore. I don't really go to the movie theaters anymore. I used to when I was younger. I kind of grew up going there. But when you go see a movie, for example, the movie you buy your ticket for 12:50 p.m. Does the movie start at 12:50 p.m.? No. Nowadays it starts 30 minutes after, 30 minutes later. You know what I'm saying? So Uh, it really should be on a Saturday. Why can't the championship game be on a Saturday? I know you want to have the Final Four on Saturday, but or even have the championship on a Sunday, you know? And before you tell me, well, that's because the women's college championship game is on a Sunday. Yeah, but it's on a Sunday afternoon. It's on a Sunday afternoon. Actually, yeah, the women's Final Four begins tonight, Friday night. It would be better if, yeah, it would be better if the women's Final Four was either Wednesday night or Thursday night, and have their championship game on Friday night. Yeah, that would be better. That would be better, I think. And then for the men's, you can have their Final Four on Thursday night and their championship game on Saturday night. Or Final Four on Friday night, championship game Sunday night. Yeah, you can have both the women's and the men's championship game on Sunday. Because the women's championship game is on a Sunday afternoon on ABC. Sunday night, what do you have? You have Sunday Night Baseball. That's about it. Well, and you got another night of the NBA and NHL, which they are getting close to the end of their regular season. But on a Monday night, really? At a late time? I know it's 30 minutes earlier, but we'll see. Now watch this game. Watch this championship game go to overtime. It's like another 30 minutes longer, which means, oh, it's going to end after midnight again or something like that. I don't know. It is what it is. So, I think for the women's side, I think UConn's going to win the championship game. They're usually the best team. Or South Carolina. It's going to be one of those two teams that'll win the championship game. I'll try to follow that as well. So, that's that. Some quick hockey news. In the NHL, Alexander Ovechkin 3 goals away from breaking the record of the most goals scored by a professional hockey player, Wayne Gretzky, at 895, I believe, and I think Ovi is at 892 or 893, something like that. So he's getting close. Lately, he's been scoring some goals. You know, a while ago, like months ago, you know, I asked myself, do I think he'll break the record before the end of the season? And I wasn't confident, so I said no. Now I am confident. I think he will break the record before the end of the regular season. Let's see how many games the Capitals have, how many more games they have left before the end of the season, the regular season. Good news is that they're going to make the playoffs. Now, when he breaks the record, I obviously want him to break the record, and when he does break the record, I want him to break the record when the Capitals are playing in DC. I don't want him to break the record when the Capitals are the visiting team, you know. Obviously, you want your home crowd fans to see history being there, all right? So, let's see here. The Washington Capitals. What a team. I remember when they won the Stanley Cup final back in 2018, and they faced the new team at the time, the Vegas Golden Knights. And that was Vegas' first season. The Golden Knights' first season was in 2018, and they went to the Stanley Cup final? That is insane. So, yeah. All right. Capitals, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 more games. Yeah, I am confident he's going to break the record. They play tonight, Friday night, at home against the Blackhawks. Okay. Then on Sunday, they play at the New York Islanders. And then they'll have a couple of days off. They'll come back home on Thursday, the 10th, at home against the Carolina Hurricanes. Then they'll go on the road next Saturday, the 12th. They'll play at the Columbus Blue Jackets. And then they'll play again the following day, except it'll be in D.C. against the same team, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Then they'll play another game at the New York Islanders on Tuesday, the 15th. And then two days later, Thursday, the 17th, their final game will be at the Pittsburgh Penguins. So they have 2 away games remaining in the regular season. So he has a really good chance of breaking the record. And he was injured earlier in the season. And when I found out he was injured, I'm like, yeah, I don't think he's going to break the record now in the same season. But he's been hot lately. And isn't he 39 years old? Wow. What a great hockey player for his age. Yeah, the Capitals, they already clinched in the Metropolitan Division with the Carolina Hurricanes. In the Atlantic, the Toronto Maple Leafs have clinched the playoff. The Western Conference, you have 3 teams that clinched. Winnipeg Jets, Dallas Stars, and Colorado Avalanche. And in the Pacific, the Vegas Golden Knights have clinched. So we shall see what happens. And I might as well go to the NBA as well. I really don't keep up with the NBA. Sometimes I'll hear news about it. That's about it. All right, some teams have already clinched in the NBA playoffs. The Eastern Conference, Cleveland Cavaliers, the champions from last year, Boston Celtics, the New York Knicks, and the Indiana Pacers. In the Western Conference, Oklahoma City Thunder and the Houston Rockets. Wow. What was it like years ago? The Houston Rockets were like the worst team. I think that one year they had a terrible season. The New Orleans Pelicans, 21-55. Well, on the bright side, they're not the worst team. It is the Utah Jazz with 16 wins and 61 losses. The best team, according to the win-loss record, the standings, is the Oklahoma City Thunder. 64 wins and 12 losses. The second place team, Houston, they are not even close to the Thunder. They have 50 wins and 27 losses. So I think a lot of people are expecting the Oklahoma City Thunder to make the NBA Finals. Sure, I would like to see them. In the Eastern Conference, I would like to see the New York Knicks in it because they haven't won it since 1973. Oh my goodness, that's 52 years ago. Can they at least go back to the championship game? It's been many years since they've done that as well. So that's the team that I'll be rooting for, the New York Knicks. All right. News in the MLB, Major League Baseball. You know, it's weird. I try to follow the schedule. So on Wednesday, this past Wednesday, for some reason, most of the games were in the afternoon. There were a lot of afternoon games on Wednesday, which is kind of weird because, Wednesday is a work day and a school day for a lot of people. And I saw a little clip, a highlight clip of the game in St. Louis, the St. Louis Cardinals. I know St. Louis, they love their baseball team, but when I saw the clip, there were a lot of empty stands at Busch Stadium because the game was on a Wednesday afternoon, regular work day, regular school day. Like, why wasn't that game in the evening? There would be more seats, fans in the stands, in my opinion, but oh well, it's the beginning of the season, so it's usually never like that in the end of the season, unless if you are the worst team like the Chicago White Sox from last year. Good gosh almighty, that probably I think they had like the lowest attendance in history. And then Thursday, the other day, there was only 5 games, and most of those games were during the daytime as well. So Mondays and Thursdays during the season, if it's not a holiday, those days are traveling days. And it turns out that a lot of teams were traveling on a Thursday. Okay? Sometimes on a Monday or Thursday, you'll have not that many games, but then Friday, all the teams will be playing. Same on Saturday and Sunday, the big weekend. Okay? There are some teams that have not played at home yet. Boston Red Sox and the Atlanta Braves. Speaking of the Atlanta Braves, in my opinion, this is the most surprising story in the major leagues. The Atlanta Braves are winless. So far they have lost all their games. And I find that very, very surprising. The Atlanta Braves are 0-7. Wow. And they are the only winless team. The Atlanta Braves. The team that quite a bit of people picked to win the East Division. I didn't pick them. I picked the Philadelphia Phillies to win the National League East. And I have the Atlanta Braves in second and the New York Mets in third. But I have all 3 of those teams making the postseason just like they did last year. The Atlanta Braves are 0-7. Wow, when's the last time that happened? Because they're usually a great team. Now, I know they had to play against the 2 best teams, the San Diego Padres and the LA Dodgers, on the road. That is a hell of a way to begin your season, playing against the 2 best teams, not only in the National League, but in all of the MLB. The Padres and the Dodgers, those 2 teams are undefeated. Yeah. I thought the Atlanta Braves they played 4 games against the Padres. I thought they would split 2 games with them, and I thought they would win 1 game in Los Angeles. They should have won that 1 game. Their last game should have been a win, but they blew it. They were actually leading that game against the Dodgers on that Wednesday game. They were actually winning that game for a while. Let me go through the box score real quick. The Atlanta Braves scored 2 runs in the first inning, then 3 runs in the second. So it was 5-0 Braves in the second inning. Then the LA Dodgers started to come back. They scored 2 runs in the bottom of the second, make it 5-2. They scored another run in the bottom of the fourth, 5-3. And then no runs until the late in the game, the 8th inning. They tied the game. And then the best player, the greatest player, Shohei Ohtani, hit a walk-off home run to center to win the ball game. 6-5, LA Dodgers. Wow. I saw a comment. The quest to 162-0 continues for the Dodgers. And someone replied, the quest to 0-162 for the Atlanta Braves continue. I knew someone was going to write that in the comments. But I think those streaks are going to come to an end because the LA Dodgers will be playing a 3-game series at the Philadelphia Phillies. So I expect the LA Dodgers winning streak to come to an end. Whether if it's Friday night, Saturday, or Sunday, it's at Philly. The Philly fans are pretty wild. So, Phillies, they only have one loss. They're 5-1. Great team. Meanwhile, for the Atlanta Braves, they finally open up their first home series against the Miami Marlins. I expect the Braves winning streak to come to an end. And I know they're in a hole. They dug themselves in a hole right now. But I expect them to come out of the hole throughout the season. I still think they're going to win quite a bit of games. That happened to the Houston Astros last year. They were off to a terrible start. And they somehow won the division, the American League West. And they made the playoffs. And then, of course, which I would call it the ultimate comeback in a season for a Major League Baseball team, and probably in professional sports history, at least in my lifetime, the Washington Nationals in 2019, they were off to a terrible start, a pretty bad first half. After the All-Star game, the second half of the season, they won a lot of games. They went to the playoffs, and they were on a hot streak. And they won the World Series against my team, the Houston Astros. The Washington Nationals used to be the team that I would follow before I permanently became a Houston Astros fan. If you want to know more about that story, I'll tell you why in a future episode. All right? So, yeah. So I expect the Dodgers winning streak to come to an end this weekend, and I also expect the Atlanta Braves losing streak to come to an end. Meanwhile, what about the San Diego Padres? I expect their winning streak to come to an end as well because they are going on the road to play at the Chicago Cubs. And it's still cold in the spring. It's warm in the south, but it's still chilly up north. So how can the Dodgers and the Padres roster deal with the chilly weather? We'll see. All right. Man, wait until the Padres face the Dodgers. That'll be something. That will be something. But yeah, I have those two teams making the playoffs. Obviously, I have the LA Dodgers winning the West, and I have the Padres coming in second, but it won't be close. I think the LA Dodgers will easily win more than 100 games. So, yeah. All right. Let me see here. Any other interesting news I want to share you before I talk about the UFL, the United Football League? I have the ESPN app. They will tell me some big news. Nope. That's about it. All right. Now to spring football. The United Football League. Well, I guess I lied. I said that this episode won't be as long as the last two, but I guess I lied. The UFL. I recapped week 1. I'll try my best to recap all 10 weeks. And I might as well give you my predictions after seeing what all of the 8 teams were like in week 1. I will give you my predictions. The best part, one of the best things about the UFL, no teams are on a bye. There are no byes. That's great. There is a game tonight, Friday night, between the Birmingham Stallions at the Michigan Panthers. So this is a USFL matchup, which means I will wear my USFL shirt. Or I should say Eric's USFL shirt to show my support. Birmingham lost the champs, or I should say the three-peat champs, the back-to-back-to-back spring football champs, the Birmingham Stallions. They lost to the DC Defenders, and it's kind of weird. The champions are playing 2 road games to begin their season. Taking on the Michigan Panthers. The Panthers beat, I believe they beat the Memphis Showboats. They did 26-12 on the road. I'm gonna go with the Birmingham Stallions. I think it'll be a close game though. Saturday, that game's on Fox, 7 p.m. Central. The USFL matchup between the Stallions and the Panthers. Saturday night, there's a game on ABC. USFL's Showboats, Memphis, taking on XFL's DC Defenders. I like the DC Defenders big in this game. And then we got a doubleheader on Sunday, an early game, 11 a.m. on ESPN between, I hate to say it, but I have to say it, the XFL's Roughnecks, the USFL's Roughnecks, even though they're in reality, they were an XFL team. Doesn't make sense, they should be the Houston Gamblers. Plus, I like the Gamblers have better uniforms, in my opinion, But they decided to keep the Roughnecks name. I think the Roughnecks, I'm going to just say this straight up, I think they're going to have a terrible season, especially after that Week 1 performance. I think they were going to be the worst team in the UFL. And if they are going to be the worst team, I hope they move to a different city. What I want them to do, what I hope is they bring back the New Orleans Breakers, because that's a USFL team. I don't think they will, but in reality, they should bring back the Seattle Sea Dragons. Even though the Sea Dragons are an XFL team, but that team had great fans. Yeah, a lot of their fans would go to the games. The Seattle Sea Dragons, they would play in the same stadium with the Seattle Seahawks. Okay? I wonder if the reason why, I think I said this in the last episode, but I'll say it again. I wonder the reason why they're not bringing, the Seattle Sea Dragons didn't come back is because they're very far away from all the other teams. You got 3 teams in Texas. You got a team in Memphis, St. Louis. They're not that far away. You got DC, that's a little far on the east. Then you got Michigan, that's that's far up north. But Seattle is really far from all of those teams. So I think that is the reason why they didn't bring them back. But they should bring them back. I figured they should get rid of the Roughnecks. I hate to say it, if they're going to be terrible. And you got 2 other teams in Texas anyways. The Renegades, Arlington, and the Brahmas of San Antonio. Roughnecks are going to play at the Renegades. I think the Renegades are going to crush the Roughnecks, so I'm picking the Renegades. And then the last game, San Antonio Brahmas will be taking on the St. Louis Battlehawks. St. Louis has great fans, and I'm going to pick St. Louis. St. Louis is going to get revenge on San Antonio, what happened in the semifinals last year. Yeah, the Brahmas played the Battlehawks in St. Louis, the game to go to the championship game, which was also in St. Louis, so I was part of me wished the Battlehawks were in that championship game because I bet you a lot of their fans would be there. I'm going with the Battlehawks in that game. We'll see how many. I'll keep an eye. I'll try to tune in. I'm probably not going to tune into all the games, but if I'm available and if one of the games is on, then I'll tune in live. But if I miss the game, I can watch their highlight video on their YouTube channel. So whichever one I decide, I will know what happened. Okay. My big question is how many fans of these teams, meaning Michigan Panthers, this is their first home game. How many of their fans will be showing up? They play in the same stadium, Ford Field, with the Detroit Lions. DC Defenders, this is their second home game. They have a great crowd as well. Arlington Renegades, their first home game, not many of their fans showed up. I don't know why. The Texas Rangers were not playing at the same time. Unlike last week, the Houston Roughnecks played in Houston the exact same time with the Houston Astros. That's stupid. You can't do that. You cannot have your schedule like that, you know. Let me see here. Let me check right now. Let's see. Are the Detroit Tigers playing on a Friday night in Detroit? Let me check right now real quick before I end this. They are, but it's a day game. Oh, this must be the Detroit Tigers' first home game. Yeah, there's actually some Friday afternoon games because the home team in those games, that's their first home game. Pittsburgh Pirates, Detroit Tigers, Boston Red Sox, Chicago Cubs, New York Mets, Colorado Rockies, San Francisco Giants, and the Atlanta Braves. Yeah, all those teams, they have not played at home yet, at their home ballpark. All their games were on the road. So that's why there's quite a bit of Friday afternoon games. But next Friday, there shouldn't be any day games. Although, usually, I noticed, whenever the Chicago Cubs play at home on a Friday, that's an afternoon game. That would be like the only Friday afternoon game. All right. DC Defenders are playing Saturday afternoon. I don't think the Washington Nationals are playing in DC on Saturday night, but I'll check. They are playing in DC, but that is in the afternoon, 3 o'clock Central. Okay. And then Sunday, doubleheader. You got an early game at 11 a.m. Central. Arlington is the home team. Are the Texas Rangers playing in Texas, in Arlington on Sunday? They are, but that game is at 1:35, so 2.5 hours later. I think Arlington's not going to have that many fans again, but it is what it is. Okay. One last thing. I almost forgot. Good thing I just remembered about this. I got a comment from a subscriber that follows both channels, Keith Sports News and Eric Super Magnificent. 5Tayer. First of all, 5Tayer, thank you so much for following, keeping up with this channel of me talking about sports. I'm glad you find this interesting and entertaining. The last episode, he says that the UFL Championship this year is on ABC, and I believe Joe Tessitore said he would be there. Oh, well, that's great. That's exciting. Yeah, I think, they alternate between Fox and ABC. Last year, Fox hosted it, so that means it's ABC's turn. But yeah, I don't know. Do you know where the championship game is? Last year, it was in St. Louis. XFL, the year before, their championship game was in San Antonio. I did mention this in the last episode. I'll mention it again. The championship game, in my opinion, should not be at a neutral site, a neutral stadium. The team that has the better win-loss record should be hosting the championship game. I think the two best teams this year will be, well, it's got to be, remember, there's two conferences, one XFL, one USFL. I think St. Louis will win the XFL conference, and I think the USFL, it's kind of hard to say. It's not going to be Houston. It's not going to be Memphis. I think it's either going to be Birmingham again or Memphis. I hope it's Memphis because I don't want to see Birmingham in it again. So let's say the championship game is Birmingham against St. Louis. Let's say Birmingham is, did I say Birmingham or Michigan? Whatever, I'll just say Birmingham. Let's say Birmingham goes back to the championship game again. They play 10 games, right? Let's say their win-loss record is 8-2. And St. Louis's Battlehawks, their record is 9-1. Well, St. Louis, in my opinion, if that's a championship game, then St. Louis should be hosting it because they have the better record. And that would be great because they would have their fans in their stadium. Like if that's the championship game, and let's say the game is in Memphis or Arlington, not gonna have that many fans, I don't think. Because that's exactly what happened last year. The championship game was Birmingham against San Antonio in St. Louis. Unfortunately, a lot of empty seats. That's why I was disappointed that St. Louis was not in last year's championship game. So it should not be in a neutral site. It really shouldn't. I mean, come on. This is not the Super Bowl. This is not college football championship. This isn't the Grey Cup where they do that, where they'll have their championship game in a neutral site, because a lot of people watch those leagues. I got to be honest. In reality, not that many people watch the UFL. Because if a lot of people watch the UFL, then I would hear people talk about the UFL. So far, the sports talk shows that I listen to, none of them talked about the UFL. None of them were like, "Hey, did you see what happened? This great game between the Birmingham Stallions and the DC Defenders. That was a great game. Did you see that long snake?" The cup of the, what do you call that? The snake cup, the big stack of cups. They would call that the big snake in the stands. Did you see that? They didn't talk about that. I just hope that the UFL is going in the right direction. I know when they 2 years ago they had both XFL and USFL seasons, and everyone, including myself, wanted both leagues to merge, and that's what happened the following year. Last year was the first year of the merger, the UFL. I just hope this league is not going in a bad direction. I know this is only year 2, but technically this is what I mentioned this in the last episode. We had an XFL season in 2020, USFL season in 2022, both XFL and USFL in 2023, UFL 2024, and now UFL in 2025. Technically, this is the 5th season for spring football. So, we'll see how it goes. All right? Anyways, but most people, this weekend, most people are going to be watching the March Madness Final Four. All right? Including myself. I will definitely tune in for those. So, enjoy another big weekend in sports. See you next time. Have a great weekend. Talk to you on Monday. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to Keith's Sports News.